Hello, hello. This is Piggsy. One of his cruises. So yeah, what's my thoughts today? It's basically, well, we get taught a lot of stuff at school and it doesn't really add up. Well, you've got to do some work on it. It's theory based. One of them is what the atom is. Told of this basically that there's particles and somehow these particles whizzing around, and they're called electrons, around some neutron on like magic rails. And I mean that's just kind of the diagram, but the diagram doesn't really represent what an atom actually is, because there'll be times where it would never, the rails wouldn't connect properly and that sort of thing. So how would it be, how do we sort out that? So, well, what it's actually, doing some research, what's actually going on is it's like pulses and waves, rippled waves of energy. And we've got something that's basically these particles of quantum are like the black mirrors. They reflect energy into a form. So what you have going on is that there's a wave of energy generated, like I guess it's a little bit like a ripple on a pond, but it's going to be three-dimensional, unless an atom lives in two-dimensional space, which actually makes a lot of sense. And so therefore it's just a big ripple effect between atoms, and they generate a kind of counterforce between each other. So what keeps them in place? It would have to connect with the what we say about is the neutron is proton. I actually think the neutron and the proton are the same thing. They're not this. I mean, you have to think about it. Would every atom be the same ratio? It's like why not have a few extra neutrons where there shouldn't be? What's going on with the neutron? So the proton's discharging a wave of what people would consider to be gravitational. So it's possibly is the neutrino wave from the neutron, and it during the charged phase, so it builds up a charge, releases it, and it pulses this wave. So as it pulses, the energy fluctuates. So there's a fluctuation in the atom. So that is drawing everything towards each other, but the other pulses from the other atoms are pulling each other left and right. It's difficult, so there must be a kind of counterforce in there. Looking at some of the work involving like Tesla, he talked about 4 types of electricity. I think mainly it's the static, there's alternating current, direct current, and there's also a photonic energy which is known as light, and there's also a different 4 magnetic forces that are counter forces to the electricity, and they'll be known as diamagnetic forces. There's a paramagnetic, there's a direct, which you probably see in bars and so on, and then there's a quantum force where it basically sucks in on itself, but can be inverted to basically it's a gateway to space. So any room or space generated comes from a quantum field, while the other magnetic fields operate into they deal with location and the movement between the atoms. They basically regulate that. There's a conscious net framework that goes into place. So an atomic structure serves a program, and this program shared between the atoms, and so every atom in itself is in tune with itself, or the other elements around it, but it actually has a kind of consciousness within it, an elemental consciousness. That's why it's called elemental, so mental in the element, as an ancient word that's often used by human cultures. So you have these different structures within the field of the atom. The actual pulse wave that Piggsy was mentioning earlier appears to be actually they unify and generate a field of energy as one. And this is the unified consciousness that exists in all things. It also exists in the human form. With your DNA, it has a consciousness connection to every cell in your body. And when this is disrupted, it can generate certain types of diseases, or it malfunctions, because the consciousness is basically piloting a vessel. So if the vessel is corrupt or has faults, it will project these faults out. The actual consciousness in a net framework for your cells operates in a hive consciousness, so it's not independent. When it separates from the collective, it then forms an independent self-regulating structure, and the cells sometimes try to mimic being what we call a prime cell. And a prime cell is basically the divisions of cells that were created in the beginning of your structure, and they are the first cells that were created. They are actually with the right nutrients and support and understanding, they can actually be immortal. Your body can be regenerated from a prime cell. Even if you're dead, there is ways to do that as well. So this is the area of physics that Piggsy was referring to. I am Zaar Bey, and I have basically stepped in to explain it better, because I have a better understanding, while his other collective part of his consciousness is driving this vehicle. So I hope this is of good understanding and thought government for you. This will help you unravel the understanding. There's some other areas of knowledge as well. Basically, there's a harmonic structure to the atom. So in the universe, it's light and music, which sounds very beautiful and angelic in itself. And basically everything's generating noise constantly, and there's light being generated as well, which is exchanged between different forms. In the same way that daylight comes in front of you, you cannot see it because your eyes are not tuned to that particular frequency, and therefore you do not see the ray itself, but you see what's known as the Ra, a reflective energy with combined consciousness embedded into the frequency. In the same way that sound can be a vibration that is in the quantum field, and therefore your senses are not based quantum based, and you cannot pick it up. So it really comes down to the fact that your electrical and wave pulse frequency, which either if only people could learn to drive. Yes, basically you have limitations into your senses. They are based on a structural frequency based on the electrical spectrum of the planet and consciousness constructs. So that's really what we want to talk about at the moment. There's other things as well with frequency and heats. I mean, if you know, heat affects magnetism, it weakens the field. That's why the atoms separate further apart and the substance and structure becomes different, making the elemental form turn less solid and become more into the plasma state, which is the prime state of its form. Anyway, this is the collective signing off, and Piggsy, bye bye.